Alrighty, hello everybody. Today I'm going to show some more advanced modeling tools in Maya. My basic video series does not cover some of these, and there's just some shapes that you can't make without them. So first let's go back to a good old friend that I show in the other series. And this guy goes by the name of Bevel. So I know you've probably tried beveling before, and you can add subdivisions and change the fraction of those, right? Bevel is kind of stepping into the territory of subdiv modeling, right? So subdiv modeling is intended for shapes that you're going to apply extra subdivisions to using like the Catmull-Clark sort of math behind it. So whenever you press 1 and 3, you can see that it's subdividing those and kind of smoothing them out with that smooth preview, right? That's kind of where you can go with subdiv modeling. If you are exporting something to ZBrush, you want to make sure that it's prepared for subdivs in there as well. So like if you export this cube and you go up in subdiv levels, it's going to still deform nicely. If you brought over this cube and then subdivided it, boom, you have a sphere now. That is not a cube, right? So yeah, so subdiv modeling is kind of getting into that sort of mindset, like how is my shape going to look once it is going through subdiv levels, right? Something you have to be careful for is with your bevels. Bevels are not flawless, right? So if I extrude out and extrude out, and let's just duplicate this shape. Let's go into our edges here, and you might be like, all right, I want this shape to hold its bevels real nicely, right? And then you just select your edges, and then you hit bevel, and then let's change the segments to 2, and let's scale down the fraction. Remember, any of these, any word in Maya, if you are clicking it and dragging to change it, you can hold Control and Shift, and you get way more minute control over that parameter. Like, look at how much I can control that. So you might think that's all well and good, and it kind of is. It kind of is, but towards the center here, you're gonna see some shading issues. And let me change my material a little bit so it's easier to see. Let's change this standard surface and make it a little bit more glossy. See that? So now you can really see your shading issues there. So the question is, how do we get rid of that, right? There's a few ways, but one of the big problems is that you have like these 3 edges here that are really close together, and they're on this flat face, right? So they're describing that flat face with extra geometry. So one thing I'd recommend is be more careful with your bevel, right? So I'm going to grab these edges, this edge, and these, right? So note that I have left out these edges, right? These ones are just on those flat faces. They're not going to retain anything, right? So if I do my bevel now, they're gonna have a lot sharper of an edge there, right? And then when I press 3, it's not gonna look perfect still. See, they're getting some creasing there, but it does look a lot better. You don't have that thing pulling it in multiple ways there, but we do have a little bit of shading issues here. Now, this can sometimes be coming from if your surface is like uneven, you know, so you might want to make sure that all these verts right here are at the same level. They should be, because we just beveled it, you know. But you also have a end gone now. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 faces on there, right? Now, this problem is very easy to solve because, like, anytime you have a 6-sided face like this, you can just multi-cut across. You can just multi-cut straight across and press enter. And then we should probably do the same on the bottom as well. There we go. Then press enter. And then you have completely quadded out geometry, right? And then note that you have that singular edge that then splits. So then these 3 edges are retaining that shape. Whenever you're beveling, you want to do 3 edges. And if you want like a flat surface, you have to understand. Let's go open up let's get a new cube here. You have to understand that you need multiple to retain a true flat shape there, right? So that's why I do the 2 edges there. You might also see that like this is getting interpolated, right? If we go from 1 to 3, beep, 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 beep. This edge, like look at the spacing of it right there, and then look at the spacing right there. So sometimes you might have to even reinforce it further, you know, and then to get a completely flat surface there. See, now this edge is the one that's getting spread, but we know that like vertically they're like at the same height, you know, so it's gonna make a nice flat surface there. This edge, even though it's at the same height, when it gets interpolated, look, it starts to slip a little bit lower. It's kind of hard to see with this, but look at that curvature there. It starts to slip down. So so reinforce your edges where you need to. And you can use multi-cut as I showed, but if you're using the bevel tool, it's gonna give you an even amount of distribution of those edges, right? Like since I did all these edges in one go, it's gonna give a nice distribution. So we might see some errors when we press 3 on this. It's like, it's not too bad, but if need be, you can reinforce some of those edges with an extra like multi-cut here. And then to reinforce these ones, you'd have to like do this and then cut across and down. If you're using multi-cut, you can use Control and Shift and cut, and that will give you a nice 90-degree angle from like that last cut. Or it's gonna try at least. Sometimes it doesn't go according to plan. But yeah, you can do that. And then, and look, it gives you 45-degree options as well. But I'm gonna go up this way. Oh, and then let's zoom out so it's all in the camera. Otherwise, sometimes multi-cut does not like sometimes it does not like working with us. And then we're just gonna close that off. And there we go. So sometimes you have to reinforce it again, you know, and then you could also reinforce it right here as well. About. There you go. So then, just double check your shading always, and we have a nice surface right there. So that's how you work with bevels. You gotta resolve them. Don't just bevel everything. Experiment as well. Like you're gonna use a bevel in certain shapes, because this is still pretty simple. But you're gonna have some complex armor shapes, I bet, and you'll be like, oh man, this bevel didn't work. Feel free to undo it. Try something else. Try multi-cutting to simplify some shapes, terminating some of these edges like diagonally or across or something. Try some different approaches. So that's bevel. And then let's introduce you. Let's start with less complex stuff. Next one I want to show is mesh tools. Create polygon. So this is for if you're creating interesting shapes, right? Or something that's like you want to work on the silhouette first and then on the actual mesh of it, right? So let's go to Mesh Tools, Create Poly. And this one, you can create any sort of shape that you want. And it's very free form, very unrestricted. And then you press enter and that creates it, right? And I went like clockwise there. Let's go counterclockwise here, because sometimes, yeah, our shading can get messed up. You see that? See the difference there? So if your shading is ever like completely black like this, that means that you're seeing the inside surface, right? So you can go to Mesh Display and reverse, boop, and then there you go. Right side up again. And that's just going based on Maya kind of expects you to do it like counterclockwise or vice versa, you know, and then it just doesn't turn out how it was expecting. But now we have this surface, right? And I want your alarm bells going off in your brain, just blasting you, because this surface is an n-gon. All right, okay? So n-gons, like I said, they're not acceptable for many 3D programs, right? ZBrush does not do well with them, for sure. And if you're bringing some of these objects over and you're going to sculpt on them, that's going to be a big problem, okay? So, one, if you're ever finding, if you're ever worried about n-gons, remember you can go to Mesh, Cleanup, and I recommend checking, doing a select matching polygons, and then you want to do faces with more than 4 sides. Don't do 4-sided faces. That's just going to give you, it's just going to highlight any quads. If you're working with new geometry, you might want to disable faces with 0 map area, because some objects come in with like no UVs and then it will start highlighting everything. Very important ones are lamina faces and non-manifold geometry. So with those selected, you can do apply, and I like to do it in object mode. Click apply, and then boom, it highlighted this face. We already knew it was an n-gon, but like sometimes the n-gons are very sneaky, you know, like maybe we have one on here that we didn't realize. Let's see. Nope. See how it deselected everything? So we have fixed that one properly, okay? But when this happens right here, boom, whip out that multi-cut tool and just start fixing some of these quads. These are just quads waiting to happen, you know? There we go. So then let's run our mesh cleanup again. Nothing. Right, so this is a great tool for making different shapes. The one I show in class is wood, furniture, ornamentation, and like stuff like this, right? Like look at that, look at these shapes, you know, like you can kind of just get a head on this by using these sort of approaches. Oh, Timu. Oh, no. Dude, Timu's the worst. All right, so let's go back to our mesh tools. Mesh, create polygon. So if we wanted one of those nice appealing curves, we can kind of just rough out the shape immediately with the create polygon tool. And then as I'm creating geometry with this tool, try to like count, like I'm trying to equate it to like which point it's going to be touching there. It's not always super easy to do, but there we go, and there we go. Alrighty, I'm gonna press enter, and then it's backwards, right? So mesh display, reverse, there we go. And then let's fix these up. Oops, going a little bit slow there. Maya had a little bit of a hiccup. But yeah, so see how I'm just fixing all of these all these quads to go to their corresponding point. And if like you have one that doesn't have one, just feel free to cut across, and then you can fix the position later. In fact, we'll probably need to add more subdivisions to this anyways. Let's grab this. There we go. And something else with the multi-cut tools, you can do edge flow. And then if you add a subdivision, boom, it automatically is going to kind of complete the arc that you have going in there. You know, so it's going to automatically make your resulting mesh nice and smooth there, right? So you can get some real cool smooth surfaces out of this tool that way. And then if we wanted to give this some three-dimensionality, we can go for that, and I'm just gonna do Control and middle click, and that's gonna blast through all of those faces. Let's continue this cut. Oh, make sure you turn off edge flow, otherwise you might get some unexpected results there. And then here we go. Now let's grab this. Let's deselect the edges right there. There we go. So now we have a nice curved surface right there. And you even go in and harden those edges. You got some nice curves there. So that is create polygon, and that is multi-cut, kind of fixing those n-gons. Really powerful tool. Absolutely powerful. So that's great. Yeah, so that's create polygon. Let's go explore some curve tools. So if you go over to your create menu, you might have used like regular extrusion to make something like a wire or like a tree branch before, but there are some other tools in here. So if you go to your create menu and you open up your CV curve or your EP curve. I mean, honestly, a lot of these are going to get the job done. I'm going to do EP curve, and you can make whatever curve you want on this surface. Any sort of shape like that. And then it's a curve, right? And that was just left clicking, and they usually like to stick to the grid. I bet if you turn on like live surface or something, you could make a live surface be the thing that gets the curve kind of plastered on top of it. But what I want to show is that you can create, let's make a cylinder. And then I'm going to change the subdivisions. Let's just do 8 so it's not super heavy. And then I'm going to delete these. So now I have this. I'm just do modify center pivot, so it just snaps the center of that. And I'm going to move it over here, and you want to move it to one side of this curve. I'm going to move it to the start, and then you might be able to use snap to curve, and then it'll snap on there. Boom. It takes some like moving around, but eventually it'll snap. See right there? It just snapped. It's kind of hard to see when it does it. But you want that to be at the very end point. And we want this to be aligned to that curve as best as we can. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to actually scale this down a little bit. It's a little bit big. And I'm going to go into face mode. I'm going to double click all the faces, and then I'm going to shift click the curve. And then if we do Control E or Command E on a Mac, boom, there we go. It's extruding. You might be like, well, this is not very useful. I don't understand. It just kind of went from the start point to the end point. But that's really cool, because if we up the divisions now, look at that surface come to life. See that? So that curve is actually dictating the shape of that extrusion, right? So you can up this to like 100. Boom. And there you go. It's gonna make a lot of nice curves. This is great for wires, ropes, vines, all sorts of stuff like that, okay? So that's a really cool tool. And then after the fact, we can go into face mode or edge mode and soften edges there. And then we get a nice smooth shaded shape right there. So that is extruding long curves. There's also, let's create another curve because there's like an even better tool for this. I mean, not to say that that's a bad tool. Like you can definitely make like any sort of extrusion shape and it'll be really useful there. But if you have a curve like this, you can do create, and then we're looking for not in the curve tools palette, we're looking for sweep mesh. Where is that bad boy? Yeah, there it is. So select a curve first before you use this tool. But after you have that, boom, it basically automatically does what we were doing before, and you can control like the profile of that. You can make it a star shape with less sides, so you can make it like a little 5-pointed star shape there. And you get so many options in here. So you can add some twist to it. You can add some taper. So you could make like strands of hair this way. You can change the curve of that taper, so it's you know, a different profile throughout. Like that's just a very linear distribution going down to 0. You know, you could change that, right? So yeah, so lots of you can rotate the start of it, you know, the end, like the whole thing at once. Lots of really cool options in here. You can even assign. All right, well, let's fiddle around with some more of these. You can assign a cube profile to that, and this is pretty nice. Let's turn down the twist. And let's open up distribute, and that's going to do an array across that, right? So it's going to actually make a few of those now. Let's do the let's see, where is it? Beep, 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 beep. Oh, if we up the precision, we can get a few more edge loops in there. My curve is a little bit too sharp there, so we're getting some errors in that. But this is a great way to make something like a banister or like a rope, you know, like anything that's like banded like that, like some ornate metal, like wrought iron fence work. Like you can make that with this. Really cool options in here. So yeah, so that is the sweep mesh. You can also give it a custom shape. Like let's make a custom shape here. So I'm gonna get a disk. Let's move this cube out of the way, and I'm gonna go to the inputs of that disk, and I'm gonna change how dense it is, and let's actually, I'm trying to think of like a nice shape to make here. That'll be interesting. So I'm gonna take some of these sides here. Let's delete that, and then let's like let's go to these, and I'm just gonna rotate that over to make kind of like a sharper edge in there. And that's going to be our profile. So let's go back to the sweep mesh, and let's go to the custom tab. So that's going to ask you what sort of profile you want. Change it to poly object, and then select that one. there you go. So now you can see it's using that as our profile for that sweep mesh. Let's turn down the distribute so you can see the actual shape. Look at that. There we go. So you can make some really cool shapes with that. Shapes that would be kind of impossible to make otherwise. Like you could extrude and do all this stuff, you know, but it'd be way slow to do it that way. Way slow. So so yeah, that's sweep mesh for you. Great tool right there. And you can just do okay. But yeah, let's also see just real quick if this updates as we change. Yeah, very cool. So you can make changes to that surface and it will update it there. So that's sweep mesh and curve mesh. Last one I want to talk about is Booleans. Booleans. So Booleans are a insanely cool tool. Okay, let's make another cube, and I'm going to make a sphere. And I'm going to snap it with V to that top corner. I'm going to scale it down a little bit. And just let's just let the Booleans speak for themselves, right? I'm going to click the cube. I'm going to shift click the sphere in that order. And I'm going to do mesh Booleans difference A minus B. So that's going to be A is our first selection. B is our second selection. So it's going to subtract this sphere from the cube, you know? So let's see what that looks like. Boom, look at that, right? So when you do a Boolean, it didn't used to be this way. My Booleans used to be like way worse, but they overhauled them. So they're usable now. In fact, that's the only thing that I went into Blender for a while was using Booleans, because they have really good Booleans over there. But yeah, so look at this. So you have this shape, and then it's subtracted by this shape. Note that I can change these shapes and they update on the fly there. You see that? Now, Maya's going to be panicking when you do that, of course, because it's like thinking a lot, but it does a good job of it, right? Now, note that this is a different object, right? So you have the cube still. You have the sphere still, but there's also this poly surface 4. So this is an additional object in there, okay? If you have another shape that you want to poke out of this, like let's get a torus. If you have another shape that you want to poke out of this, just grab it. I'm going to scale this one down. I probably don't need it to be as, I don't need it to be as big. Let's change some of these parameters. That's the wrong radius. Section radius, perhaps? Yeah, there we go. Let's do that. And then let me also change the subdivisions about the axis. And then subdivisions on the height. Let's just go to a nice 8 so it's like a little bit easier to work with. And then I'm going to rotate that 90 degrees. And let's cut this surface out of there. So to add this to the cut, right? You want to select your surface, or sorry, select the torus, and then go into your Boolean shape, and then go to your attribute editor, go to the Boolean tab, and add that object. So now that torus got added to this poly surface stack, right? This is a stack of Boolean operations now. This one is set to add, right? Union. So this mesh on the inside, boom, got deleted. You see that? See, it's showing this with this red outline. It's showing where that torus actually is on the inside. But our resulting mesh does not have that. It's exactly what we want, like to be a nice surface there. We could also, after the fact, change this. So it's going to be subtracting. So it's like a good way to get this sort of shape on the inside, right? When that goes all the way through, like that'd be a very difficult shape to model, right? You'd basically have to like reverse the torus, delete the faces, add some cuts on the cube, mesh combine them, and then resolve it with multicuts after the fact. So yeah, so that's and you can like toggle some of these off and on if you don't like them. So it lets you work very differently, you know. You can also work with shapes that are like really round, you know. And this is these are great tools for something like a sci-fi panel. Like think about how crazy some of these shapes get, right? Like my mind is just panicking looking at this, right? But all these vents and stuff and these little etchings on that, those could all be Booleans, right? So so like let's try to make some right here. So I'll do something like this, and I'm gonna scale it, and let's bevel it as well. Let's just bevel that guy. And I'm going to scoot this over. I'm going to scale it. I'm going to move it. And then I'm going to shift click the original one and then add that selected object. Let's remove it. Difference. There we go. So now we have that nice Boolean shape in there. Let's do the same thing with this. And note that there are different operations, right? So you can do difference, A minus B, difference B minus A, so it's going to subtract the cube shape from this. Slice, so it's going to subdivide the surface there, or it's just gonna like basically multi-cut the surface there, not exactly a subdivide. Hole punch is gonna cut those shapes out of it, and intersection is gonna only give you the resulting mesh of like, imagine them as like Venn diagrams, right? This is the Venn diagram resulting shape there. So yeah, so lots of different options in there. And I know you're probably over the moon right now thinking about how many cool things you can make with your newfound tool, right? The problem though, y'all, the problem is that this shape has disgusting geometry. So if I duplicate the shape and move it, you can see all of those Booleans get applied. I recommend working with it like this, because if you start applying Booleans to something and then it becomes like too complex, one, this gets rid of the history on it, so it's like easier for Maya to calculate things with it. But also, if you leave it there, like by duplicating it out, you leave the one that you were working on. So if you have to make any modifications to these shapes or anything, or change like the cut parameters, anything like that, like you still can do that and then just duplicate it out and then move it over, you know. But if you're very satisfied with your Booleans, you gotta start resolving these edges, right? If right now, if I press 3, oh man, if you're doing any sort of subdiv work, right, that shape is gonna look awful. It's gonna be disgusting. Okay, so commonly what you got to do is just start going in with your multi-cut and figuring out some edge loops that will fix your geometry. So it's like I got to go down here, and then we can connect this. And as you're fixing this, I know that first cut is very sloppy looking, right? As you're fixing these shapes, you can use a lot of multi-cut, or sorry, not multi-cut, but Maya's transform constraints. So right here, if we click this point, if you hold Control and Shift and I hover over this manipulator, notice that it says slide. That means that anywhere that I move this, it's going to be sliding on the edges. See how it's only going to where the edges of that model were, right? If you go over here, you can go to surface slide, and then it's going to slide only on that n-gon surface right there. So you can really refine your shapes with this, with these sliding features. Really good approach here. I'd recommend something like this when you're working on these sort of hard surface shapes. And then it's all about terminating these edges, right? How are these going to work together, right? Like I can see that some of these will have to, man, it really connected a weird one here. I'm gonna delete that, hope it doesn't panic too much. And I'm just gonna cut across here. Ooh, yeah, it's panicking a little bit. Maya does not like Maya's pretty good at resolving n-gons. Let's cut across here first and then delete it later. But sometimes that math can be real difficult to process. So yeah, I know everyone wants to dogpile onto Maya, but like you try programming the thing that resolves some of these n-gon math. It's quite the challenge. And usually on these shapes, I want like a retaining sort of shape as well. You know, that's why I like adding that little outside shape there. And let's just do this for now if it lets us. And so you can get some of this geometry that sort of holds the line up here. Let's go in here, cut it around, and there we go. And then we can send this one down. And then you can use stuff like your snapping features. Like I know that this is not a perfectly vertical line, so I'm gonna hold V. I'm gonna snap to that vert. Same with this one. Let's get that be nice and vertical. And then you can just keep fixing these. I know we still have n-gons 100%, you know. And at some point, you're gonna have to do something like this, where you go from this one to the outside, and you have to go from this one around, and then we can like start to use that to help with this shape over here, you know. You may have to take something like this shape and bisect some of this geometry in here. And, oh man, there we go. Wait, all right, I'm just gonna accept that. Or I could also go in here and just go midway through. That way we know exactly where that point is, and then I can slide. Well, let's turn off surface. If you're ever on surface and you're moving something on a big corner like that, I'm a little bit suspicious that it's getting it correct, so I like to turn that off. And then let's see, this could probably go up here. This would probably have to go up on top and around. Let's see, I'm gonna target weld this. And then multi-cut. I'm just gonna go straight up. I'm gonna delete this. Multi-cut, straight up. Edge, edge, boom, let's delete that. Let's connect this. So we're slowly fixing like all of these little mesh errors on here. These might not be the best fixes in the business, you know. And like this, I wouldn't want to make this thing again. Instead, like you can take some shortcuts. Like we already made one of these that looks nice. So why not just duplicate that, move it down, and I'm gonna grow my selection with shift period. Shrink is shift comma, and then I'm gonna invert that selection, delete that. And then we can just kind of align some of these points in here like this, and then I'm gonna align it right there. And then we don't have to worry about some of those points that we were moving around before. We just got to mesh combine, and then start worrying about this. I'm going to turn edge slide off. I'm gonna, oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. Let's get and I'm gonna convert that selection to verts, just so I can isolate all that. There we go. There we go. And then we could like target weld across there, you know. So target weld, target weld, target weld, target weld, target weld, target weld, and there we go. Alrighty, so now it's looking good, and it's just a matter of fixing the rest of these, you know. So so that's working with like Booleans. That's gonna be they're a great tool that you like can't make certain shapes without, but they're gonna be a little bit of a pain, because they're gonna not behave. They're not going to be as bulletproof as you would expect, you know. Like, you still have to solve the topology and stuff, you know. Now, Blender has some great tools for this. From what I've seen, I don't use it myself, but I also don't do a bunch of hard surface work, you know. So I haven't had the need, but yeah, feel free to use whatever tool is best for your needs. And if I just go in here and start smoothing out some of these shapes, we can see that what I've done is going to really help the overall form of this. It's still not going to be good, of course, you know. Like, I still have so many points to fix in here. And then like I would also have to, like, after the fact, go through and bevel certain retaining edges, you know. Yeah, let's just do these ones real quick, even though they're definitely n-gons right now. We do bevel. Let's do 2 segments, and let's shrink that. So now we have some retaining edge loops on a lot of those points. We could also do ones around these guys, because you need some of these shapes to be maintained. There we go. That's looking good. And then let's press 3 on this to see. Look at that. So yeah. The that n-gon right there, this fat one, that is causing a lot of those shading issues down there. But like, look at the stuff that we've quadded out. Like, look at that. It's looking very smooth, dude. So so yeah, so be careful with your n-gons and your Booleans. Those are really great tools, but they come at a cost. Okay. All right. Thanks for checking out some advanced Maya modeling tools with me. Have a good one.